baseball officials in Columbus took a stand on being tolerant. So why had the use of the name and the flag come to pass? The answer was civic pride. With all the work that the city had done to get a team, they were not going to let the nickname of a major league club kill baseball again. If that meant alienating a percentage of potential fans, then so be it. The experience of black players like Roy White and Jim Horst were the casualty of keeping baseball in Columbus. And it worked for 3 years at least. Looming over minor league baseball for the previous 2 decades had been the growing presence of television. Minor leagues in the South were dying, and Columbus experienced the same demise as other franchises. The team's last season was also the first season of the Atlanta Braves, and that was no coincidence. The creeping hand of TV had finally risen from the depths and claimed the Columbus franchise. So searching for a franchise. The team did not experience a lot of success trying to find a franchise after 1959. The team was twice awarded a Southern Association berth but could not secure a franchise. The one time they did get a franchise, the organization backed out of the agreement after 1 week. Hopes of ever getting a team were dismal, and in 1962, the city's best hope of getting a team, the Southern Association, folded. And in the bottom right, that's a picture of the memo that Hal Totten, the president of the Southern Association, sent out to the team owners. The Southern Association's problems were directly tied to race. 3 teams in the league were unable to play against other teams that had black players. Their home cities had ordinances preventing the mixing of races on a baseball field. The most important of these cities was Birmingham, who was the premier minor league city in the South. The club regularly drew over 100,000 fans in a season. With the loss of Birmingham, the league would not be able to operate, and it didn't. Columbus had been the only hope for the Southern Association. If Columbus could get a team, the league could stay alive with 6 teams instead of the 8. However, with Minnesota backing out of their working agreement in '62 with Columbus, they couldn't get a team. Unfortunately, the irony of the situation is that ownership of the Birmingham club fought so long to have segregation ordinances repealed that when they had to finally give up the Southern Association, did not have enough time to find other cities to replace them. They only had 2 months before the season started, but they could make it work with 5 teams. Under the ownership of team president Dick Steele, Columbus finally got a franchise. Credit must be given to Mayor Johnson, though, for his efforts in 1960. John Johnson, the farm director of the Yankees, said that B. Ed Johnson was the first person to ever come into his office and beg for a baseball team. His efforts were successful, though. In '62, the Yankees' club in the South Atlantic League was Augusta, but Augusta only drew 43,000 fans that season, besides the side winning the first half pennant and the league playoffs. During the '63 offseason, the minor leagues underwent restructuring. The South Atlantic League was reorganized as the Southern League and was going to operate as a AA circuit. The Southern Association had been reborn. Augusta could not stay above water before in a Class A circuit, and it certainly would not be feasible in a bigger league. John Johnson remembered his conversation with B. Ed Johnson, and he gave Columbus a call. And if you look on the right here, that picture, even though it's really faded, that's the original register of all the Southern League teams, and I've got the box highlighted. If you can get closer to see it, it's the team nicknamed Columbus Yankees, Columbus Confederate Yankees, and that's from December of '63. That's the first formal reference to the team's nickname. In 1950, church leaders in Columbus ran a campaign to have beer sales at Golden Park prevented. They were successful, and over the next 14 years, movements to have the ordinance repealed were shot down 3 different times. Beer and baseball are inseparable. The monetary losses from no alcohol sales would likely mean the death of the team from day one. The first move of Greater Columbus Baseball League was to file a beer sales application in December 1963. The application passed, and the religious community promptly demanded a revote. And the bottom right is the alcohol pending signed at Golden Park, and this is the picture of the original beer application that Earl Haynes, the vice president of the club, filed with the city council. Opposition to beer sales was organized by the Columbus Ministerial Alliance. Shortly after demanding a revote, they put together a 3-man committee to create a statement on the disapproval of alcohol. The statement passed with a vote of 23 to 1. The only dissenting vote was from Reverend John L. Waiter of the Lutheran Church of the Redeemer. In total, 17 different churches submitted letters of opposition to the city council, and several other important members of the community did. But I've got all 17 letters from the churches here. Support for beer sales came from many places. Greater Columbus Baseball Inc. spoke at the city council meetings. Reverend Ellwanger spoke in favor of it, and his quote's in the bottom right. One of the most convincing arguments for beer sales was made by retired General M.B. Bell at Fort Benning. His quote's up here. He said, "I have been a citizen of Columbus since January 1952 and have attended baseball games at Golden Park since 1924. During the past 10 years, I have seen Columbus ministers kill professional baseball in our city 3 different times," talking about when they wouldn't repeal the ordinance preventing alcohol sales. Now they are trying to repeat their ill-advised, selfish, injurious actions. I do not contend that the sale of beer at baseball games is individually necessary to ensure their financial success, but I do contend that it is very helpful. He was right. They had to have alcohol sales for the team to be able to function. But it passes. It passes 3-2. There's the resolution up in the top right. And people in town were overwhelmingly favorable to it. It was just the religious community. They may have been the loudest, but they weren't the largest. 2 out of 3 people in the town were in favor of beer sales. But the biggest thing was the sponsorships from the beer sales doubled the predicted operating costs of Golden Park. The team was going to be in the black before day one. Sponsorships from alcohol would gain them about $15,000, and Golden Park only cost about $8,000 to operate. So there's no way that the city officials were going to let beer sales go by the wayside when they had a chance to start the team in the black from day one. Talking about the first season, everyone was excited. The city was filled with excitement for the first season. General Manager Charlie Singer hired Rube Walker up here in the top left to manage the club. Walker previously managed championship teams in Augusta and Atlanta. Singer also reached an agreement with R.C. Cola to buy the first all-electric scoreboard in Georgia. The technological marvel took over a month to install at Golden Park. Columbus finally had a team. So, changing directions, let's look at what was happening around the time in town. Columbus took part in the centennial celebrations that were sweeping the South. The city shared a special connection to the war, and as the last battle was fought here, city officials greatly supported the celebrations. The largest of these celebrations was the Gallant City. Organized by the A&C Committee of Columbus, the Gallant City was described as a musical production of the Battle of Columbus. The event was massively supported by the community. Programs from the Gallant City illustrate the use of Confederate terminology and iconography in advertisements. Remember, the businesses are capitalizing on what's going on during the centennial. The Gallant City played 1961 and 62 before being brought back for the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Columbus. Opening weekend for the Gallant City happened to be the opening weekend for the Columbus Yankees that year. Few attended the Gallant City that weekend. They're all at the ballpark watching the Confederate Yankees. This particularly angered one Columbus painter named Bud Hood, who had previously had a dispute with the club after a team had turned down his business offer to paint the signs. Up in the top left, it's got the note from the meeting minutes of the Columbus City Council where he had presented his proposal. They referred him to the team. The team decided not to work with him. Hood's response to the Yankees' subversion of the Gallant City was to hang signs criticizing the team on the facade of his paint shop. These signs attacked both the team and other city officials. Hood's issues were with the alcohol sales and the team name in particular. Despite many of the signs being humorous, several were vulgar. The obscenities led to citizens of the town filing a petition to enjoin Hood. And you can read some of the signs over here on the right. The one at the bottom right kind of sums up his issues with the team. It says, "What is a Columbus Confederate Yankee? No such animal." It was an abomination to have the two names together. His spelling was an abomination. The hearing illustrated the type of enemies Hood had made. Many city officials testified against him. He had attacked the most powerful people in Columbus, and they weren't going to let him get away with it. More importantly, these people supported the baseball team. Roscoe Thompson, the secretary of the baseball franchise, represented the state. Judge Land heard the case. Land's son was a bad boy for the Yankees. At the end of it all, Hood provided little defense but to reaffirm his pride in the Confederacy and to highlight his concerns with the ballpark, When he came to the hearing, he only brought two things. He brought a piece of paper with stuff scribbled on it, and he brought a big map that was rolled up when he got in there, and they asked him to provide his defense. All he did was unroll the map, circle the South, and say, this is the Confederate South. His point saying, these Yankees don't belong here, I'm right, because this is the South, this is the Confederacy, and this is what we represent.